streaming. Put this in the foreground. And when we're ready, we can actually, when Ben's here, we can introduce Ben. It says we're live. Oh, we are live.
Does it say we're live?
Does
How did that happen?
Because we're live.
Well, somebody must have pushed a button, I'm assuming.
I pushed the live button, yes. I pushed the
there you
button
go.
that said make us live. And it's 1 o'clock, so...
That's the answer to my mystery then.
Yeah. Hello everybody, I'm Brook, and
And I'm out of shot.
and Margaret is out of shot.
Because you're a screen hog.
This is Margaret. We're with Stickmen Media and Desolate Spectre Studios. Here to stream the development of our game After the Light. This guy in the middle, notably missing, is going to talk with us today about the programming side of After the Light. We haven't actually done much in the way of programming, and we are learning Unreal Engine, so there are some real challenges.
Fuck that up.
What were you doing?
It's a technical issue.
Sorry?
It's a technical issue. It's alright. As you were. Carry on.
Okay.
No, I was actually just wanting
Margaret
to see
decided
us.
to be technical and erased one of Ben's screens. We'll see if
thank
that
you.
was critical or not.
Well,
I think it's just minimised, Ben.
I think it probably is. But anyway.
So
check.
this is Ben,
Hello.
who we were introducing before. So Ben is the guy we're going to be talking about.
A highly reluctant star. Star of stage and screen.
Just screen.
I'm just going to check to see if it's still there.
Yeah.
It is.
So
Still
yeah,
there.
so you're
Well, I
going to
didn't
see.
click the X that would close it. Brooke. What a complete fuck
How come that thing
Tech
is
car.
called AFL?
That was either Lincoln or me.
Somebody
getting the-
cocked up.
Yeah.
All right.
It kind of makes sense. After light.
All right.
Yes. After the,
The
fucking
phonetics
light.
are kind of there. Almost.
So there are things happening on another screen that you guys can't see, where we're actually cloning our Git repository to show you some stuff that is happening in the development of that. We use the OBS software. It's really neat. We can sort of switch between scenes, and in this scene it's all just us, but we can quickly swap to a scene where there's another background screen, which we will use shortly as soon as we've got anything to show. The other thing that's happening on the other screen is we're installing Unreal, because that's a little thing we forgot to do before the show as well. However,
preparation.
indeed,
That's why we're
indeed.
in the in real life category.
Indeed. This is in real life, and mostly this is not scripted.
It's,
I don't
it's
think- I think
I was
just
going
not
to say you
scripted.
forgot your line. All right. So Ben, what has your experience been of Unreal so far?
It's really impressive actually. I like Unreal quite a lot. It's obviously been very sort of battle hardened. Like it's obviously been used for lots of games, and that really shows because stuff you generally need in games is there in a way that makes sense. So excuse me. So all the sort of standard components you get in Unreal, sort of like navigation and rendering and AI structures and all that kind of stuff, is really well thought out, and it's really pragmatic and useful. Because we did a lot of Unity stuff. In fact, this project, the very, very first prototype was a little Unity thing that I hacked up.
Mm-hmm.
And Unreal is sort of, those two engines are sort of kind of on par, I think, in terms of features. But Unity, I think, is a much more sort of do-it-yourself thing. It's like it has all the components, but doesn't kind of tell you how they should be put together.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Unreal is a bit more opinionated. It sort of says, this is how you use this thing. If you don't use it like this, you will suffer. Whereas Unity sort of lets you make all your own mistakes and work out that you shouldn't have done it that way after all. So yeah, from that point of view, I really like Unreal. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, and there's a lot of stuff that makes it very accessible to non-programmers as well. I mean, it's still like a very overwhelmingly technical bit of kit.
But the blueprint system, I guess, is what you're talking about.
Well,
there.
yeah, kind of. I mean, the blueprints stuff. Blueprints is Unreal's visual scripting system. You sort of drag nodes around and link them up, and it's all very visual. But really, it is actually just programming. You may as well be typing line by line in a text editor. You'd have exactly the same end effect. The visual side's a little bit more accessible to non-programmers, but only just a little bit. You still have to kind of know what you're doing. So I think it's quite misleading in that way. But the real cool thing about Unreal is, for non-programming side, is just how accessible it makes a lot of the art pipeline stuff. So a lot of the shaders, shader definitions and things, you can do amazing stuff in shaders without doing a line of programming. It's all visual scripting again, and for shaders that works really well. You can sort of hook it into your game logic and stuff as well, and have, like, you know, if you want your character to have team colours or something, you can sort of really easily just drag out an extra node in your shader, and you have the colour input will be driven by some variable that can come from somewhere else in the game. So
I was very impressed to see Lincoln, our concept artist, actually created a shader that would allow us to texture the top of a rock with moss.
Yeah, exactly.
And later, if we went and decided, well, that rock's wrong, and we rotate it, then the moss would automatically move around to the top.
Yeah, that kind of thing is fantastic in Unreal. It's really good. Another example would be the animation system. It's like when you're we've got a character moving around in the game, very often the way you'll do it is you'll have a variety of animations. So you might have a walking animation and a running animation, and the speed that you want to go at determines how you blend between those animations. So if you have a standing animation, so if you're not moving, you play the standing animation. There's a walking animation when you go sort of half speed or something, say, and then when you're going full speed, there's a sprinting animation. And in between those speeds, you actually blend smoothly between those animations. So you go from a stand into a walk, and then from a walk into a run. It's just a smooth transition no matter what speed you're going. And that's quite simple and straightforward, but you can get a lot more complex with that. In that, like, you will have, like, a game like sort of Super Mario or something like that. Super Mario, one of the 3D ones, say Sunshine. That's one of my favourite, I think. If you look at that, like, when he turns to the right, he will kind of lean over to the right, and when he stops, there'll be like a sort of a pulling back animation. If he walks backwards, there's another animation, and there's a huge number of animations that just go into his basic walking and running around.
Yep.
And that's what you can do with this sort of blending thing. You can, set up your idle, walk, run, but then you can also mix in, if we're going left and right, you can then mix in, sort of leaning over to the right animations and all sorts of things like that. So it can get really complicated really fast. I mean, I have worked on projects where I think we're blending on, something like 10 or 12 animations for the main character at any one time. So it can get really, really complex, and from a coding side point of view, that can be quite hard to manage. But the tools in Unreal for doing that stuff are really, really good, in that you can actually just hand it all off to the artist to sort it out, basically.
There you go.
They just have sort of a graphical square, and basically the y-axis represents your sort of forward backward speed, and the x-axis is your horizontal speed. So if you're standing still, it would be right in the middle, and you just drag the animations to different points on this graph, and voila, you've got an animation controller.
Fantastic.
And so whatever speed, wherever you are on that graph, it just smoothly blends between whatever animations you put there. So you can put as many as you want for, if you've got a walk, a slightly faster walk, a run, and a flat-out sprint or something. You can just plonk them into the right places, and you know, if the changeover points aren't quite right, you just sort of tweak the animations, move them up and down a bit.
Yep.
And it's fantastic for that, and it's I mean it's really good. It means that it decouples all that nasty stuff from the code,
Yep.
basically. So the code just says, I want to be running forward at this speed, and sort of, you know, in that direction, and the animation controller, whatever is set up, just says righto. And it also means you can do things like you can use the same AI. So you have a sort of an AI component, say, that works out what the character wants to do, where it wants to go, which direction, how fast. Or it might be a player controller, which is like, you know, getting input from a gamepad or something. And that just gets fed into the animation controller for that character, and it'll play the right animation.
Yep.
You can then switch it out for another animation controller. It could be for a completely different sort of character. You might have, you know, some sort of 8-legged gun-toting octopus or something.
Now you're
you know,
talking.
I'd buy it.
Yeah.
And the AI stuff would still work exactly the same. It doesn't care what animations are being played. It just says, right, we're going in this direction at this speed. And the animation controller just magically sorts it all out, which is really, really nice.
Very nice.
That's
You're
really
sort of
cool.
alluding to a rich history there of game development, Ben.
I've been in the games industry for, well, probably about 10 or 15 years, I guess, sort of on and off, since the mid-90s, which dates me quite a lot.
Yeah, but I think that leads to a massive depth of understanding about gameplay as well as game development, doesn't it?
Yeah, although the downside of that is my brain is actually still, like, sort of about that much of my brain is probably just full of useless Commodore 64 programming stuff. And there's like an Amiga layer on top of that, and so on up through the ages. So it's
Oh god, yeah, there's probably some use for
a
that.
finite resource, probably.
Actually, you did something everybody would recognise on Commodore 64. They might not have played it, but they'd have heard of the name of the game that you did for Commodore 64.
Oh, Minesweeper.
Minesweeper, yeah.
Yes, I did Minesweeper in 1989. Yes. Of course, I didn't do the one that Microsoft, when they released Minesweeper, they made a few changes from my original design.
Yeah.
Like that one had more bombs and clicking on tiles, and much less flying around spaceships shooting aliens that my one had. So I feel they missed a trick there.
Yeah, indeed.
So
Indeed. No, clearly they felt they couldn't actually pull off the whole thing.
Probably not. Yeah. Had to compromise my vision.
Yeah. Minimum viable product.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I think this checkout is taking an awfully long time.
I don't know that it's gone much further.
I think while we're streaming, we're probably holding up the installation of everything.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's quite a big project. There's a lot of stuff in there. So
Let's have a look at the screen.
Oh,
there.
it's moving.
it's smoothing slowly.
Slowly.
If it comes through, it comes through, and we can show some stuff. Otherwise, do it another time.
Let's see if. Let me tell you, that screen's not greatly responsive. There we go. That's still verifying at 99%.
Oh, unreal.
Yeah.
So, what other engines have you worked with? Games engines have you worked with besides Unreal and Unity?
Generally, it's just been sort of bespoke, custom stuff. I worked in the UK for quite a while, and I worked for a company called Just Add Monsters, who became Ninja Theory. And the first game we did was Kung Fu Chaos, which was an Xbox game. And that actually used, like, an Xbox, the first Xbox. You can't call it Xbox One, Xbox Zero, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually used renderware as, I wouldn't call it a game engine, it was more like a library. It's basically, it had stuff for, like, loading in 3D stuff, or getting 3D stuff out of a modeling program and animation onto disk, and then loading it into a game, and then rendering it and loading in sounds and playing them and all that kind of stuff, handling input. And it had a lot of quirks, and by the end of the project we actually had rewritten pretty much the entire thing. I think we still used the same loading code. That was about it. Everything else had been rewritten from scratch. But it was still worthwhile using it, I think, because originally it was on the PlayStation 2. We actually had it up and running on PlayStation 2, and then we got signed by Microsoft, and we had to port it to the Xbox. And we actually had it running on the Xbox within 2 days of getting the dev kits.
Well, that was very nice.
Which was really cool, and that sort of showed how nice it is to have an engine that is already there and working and cross-platformish.
Absolutely.
That was really good.
Yeah, I guess we haven't had that much experience with engines. We started off with Gamebryo, I think, was the first engine we actually had at Stickmen Studios. We then decided to go for something, I guess, that was bespoke. We thought it was, would be good for us to do that, and that was a local engine.
Let's see. Yep, that can change your computer, do whatever it likes.
Sorry, we stopped for install there. We decided we needed something of our own that we could change the code of and all the rest of it. We could have had the source code version of Gamebryo, but it was quite expensive. And we had a local guy that produced a games engine, the Carbon games engine, that we thought we would actually use. And the Carbon games engine technically was brilliant, but of course it's not like when you're using Unity. You can't just go to Google and ask, how do I do this, and get lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So you're really isolated in terms of how much help you can get with things. I mean, the guys that offered it were great, and they gave us as much help as they could. But a few guys there supporting 8 of our programmers was was always going to be tricky for them. So we moved on from there. We tried Unity after that, and then we sort of settled on Unity for a number of years. And then when we got to this project and we were deciding to put out our own stuff, we became convinced that we could get more involvement from artists if we actually used Unreal over Unity, and that seems to have been the case. We seem to have pulled that off,
definitely.
essentially.
I mean, because there hasn't been a lot of programming on this project so far.
And yet it works and runs.
Yeah. I mean, basically I put in some really, really, really minimal stuff to just handle some very basic shooting and handle zombies looking for the player and homing in on them and going to ragdoll and shoot them. And that
which still looks like shooting a bag of jelly.
Well, yeah, but again, that's the thing. I mean, the bag of jelly effect is because it's just using the default physics rig that Unreal sort of guessed for that character, and you actually need to go through and just sort of reposition all the bounding volumes, get the head the right size, the collision volumes for the head, and collision volume for the torso and the arms and stuff. And again, that's something that you don't need any coder involvement for. It's like somebody who actually knows what they're doing can actually go in and do it properly. So
I was going to volunteer till you said that.
What's code?
Yeah. Someone who knows what they're doing.
Because all that stuff, it's like there's an editor in Unreal for editing collision volumes on skeletal meshes, and it doesn't require any code input. It's got a whole lot of things for testing it out, so you can see your characters standing on a plane on a little grid in Unreal, and grab one of its hands and sort of swing it round and stuff like that, and just make sure it's all kind of reacting how you think it should be. And so an artist can go in and do that all properly, make it look really good, and then it's in the game, and suddenly it's all not jelly anymore.
So how much programming will you expect to do from here on in?
Well, quite a bit, but a lot less than I think I'd be doing if I was in Unity, I think. I mean, we're coming into this project having never used Unreal before, or not having any experience in it, and so
Hard to tell.
most of the time, most of the time it's just trying to figure out the right approach, because often it's not the documentation in Unreal. I don't think is massively fantastic. Partly because it's a lot of it's sort of quite visually driven. It's, I don't know, they just don't bother with the documentation, or it's quite hard to document visual things without, it's a lot of work in doing it. There are a lot of sort of video tutorials and stuff out there, and Unreal, Epic do a lot of video tutorial things.
Are they good?
They're good, but I'd really, 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 really much rather just have the pertinent details sort of logged down on a single page to look up and search and stuff. But that's what you get for having sort of a nice, friendly, visual editing environment, I guess.
So are there any cons for using Unreal at this point? Aside from the documentation?
Not really. I think probably the biggest worry I've got is if we run into something that causes a real problem, or we can't figure out why it's happening, then
we could be screwed.
But it's a solid engine. I mean, I'm not worried that it's going to be suddenly get really, really flaky and crash all the time or anything like that.
But just our lack of experience with it.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, because we're not familiar with it. If there's something where we really have to start digging into the details, then there's a lot of details to dig into.
Yeah. And presumably there are ways that we could be more efficient in using it than others. We could end up
absolutely,
doing massive long workarounds where we could do something really simple.
Yeah, I mean, already we've got like Lincoln's been doing all the environments with lights and making them look fantastic, but there's definite speed issues with lights. There's Unreal. I haven't really even looked into how the lights work in Unreal. But there's so much stuff that's.
We've got aliens. We're being invaded by aliens. They're actually school kids, but it's the same deal.
So Lincoln's got these amazing looking levels that are beautiful subtle lighting and stuff in them, and they look wonderful. But there are technical issues with the lights. You've got to make sure you don't have more than 4 sort of lighting volumes of overlapping or something like that. Or there's sort of upper limits on what you can do without. Up until that point, you get sort of nice sort of pre-baked shadow volumes, like light maps and things, all kind of calculate before you go. So at runtime, it's really, really quick. But if you get to the point where you're above a certain limit of overlapping area lights, then it has to fall back to doing some stuff in real time. And I think that's a lot where a lot of our frame rate's going at the moment. Is just because the lighting is not using the beautiful, quick, smooth, static setup. It's actually doing a lot of stuff in real time that it doesn't need to do, and that's just because nobody's sat down yet to actually really work out what the issues are.
Because there is that grand cave that Lincoln's got with the rope bridges in there.
That's not a problem.
But it's got a really low frame rate now. He's got lights everywhere, of course.
It's not the number of lights, it's how many are overlapping, basically. As long as you keep them separated in the right way. Like each light has a sort of sphere of influence. And I think it was like 4 lights or something. If you have more than 4, it has to do some dynamic stuff at runtime. Whereas if you only got up to 4, then it can just sort of bake it all in. I think it uses some lovely fancy voxel light grid or something. It's like magic. Lots of stuff in Unreal is just magic.
It's fantastic.
But that's the problem though.
I was going to say there's a lot to go right and there's a lot to go wrong. Or a lot to get complicated with.
It's the same with any game engine. I mean, Unity's the same. And it's really, really good. But if something goes wrong, then it's there's so much more complexity to go through. I mean, if we were writing our own game engine from scratch, first off, it would take us a lot longer. But we wouldn't have to do everything that Unreal or Unity do. We only do the bare minimum that our game does. And as a consequence, first off, we understand the engine top to bottom because we wrote it, and secondly, when something goes wrong, because it's a much simpler code base, you're much nimbler. You can work through it much quicker. You can find bugs in it much quicker. You can recompile it much quicker and fix stuff up.
Okay.
So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Off-the-shelf engine.
our guests are leaving at the moment, it would seem.
The aliens are hoarding out.
There were a few there that were aspiring Twitch stars. They were waving at the camera and so forth.
They're all doing a game development course at school.
Are they really?
Yeah, there's a game
okay.
course.
Excellent.
Very cool.
Oh, well. I think your downloads might actually be ready.
Yeah,
so we
I
seem to
think
have Unreal launched.
Incredible. So, hang on a minute.
Well, you've got a project already on...
Yeah, I don't want to create a project, do I?
No.
Oh yeah, okay. So I have to browse for it. So do you work? Oh gosh, where did I put it? Documents.
D drive. Documents.
Yeah, there we go.
GitHub.
Just all defaulty things. There we go. Ah, you got a newer version of Unreal.
I've got what?
A newer version of Unreal.
All right. Well, let's open a copy. We'll
Yeah.
do what we need to do.
And that'll probably take a while as well.
My battery is running low.
Let me just plug that in then, shall I?
It is plugged in. Do you want to turn on the PowerPoint? Because that's the part I missed.
Little details.
Very well.
Details.
Excellent.
Details.
My battery is no longer running low. All right. So you might actually get to see something today. The way, the way this is going, I'm very hopeful. So as you can see, I've already swapped the screen so that you can see what's happening on the other screen.
Cool. This should be. It doesn't need to be full screen. Like a new window.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of the cool things about Unreal is that it because it's quite opinionated, and most of its opinions are crafted through bitter experience of actually doing like real games. There's a lot of good stuff in there, so a lot of the approaches are the right ones, I think. And one of the ones I think is really good is the way it really goes to a lot of effort to decouple stuff. So different systems are independent from each other. So like I was saying with the animation controller, it's like your AI system doesn't care what animation controller it's driving.
Right.
It can drive any character you like, just because there's that sort of interface that decouples them. And it's the same for lots of different stuff in Unreal. Probably the most immediate example would be just shooting stuff and damage and things like that.
Right.
It's like lots of games involve shooting things and blowing stuff up. That's
Hopefully,
fun.
yeah.
And so Unreal actually just has like a sort of predefined method for actors in the game to say, and you have, by default, it defines like point damage, like sort of like a bullet or something, like sort of radius damage for like an explosion or a grenade or. And so the idea is you just have this sort of standard thing, right? Here's a thing, like say you have a gun. Is right, cast a ray out into the world along the way I'm facing. First thing that I hit, apply damage to it. And that's all. The gun doesn't know about the things in the world other than being able to cast a ray out into it. And then the things in the world, if they're damaged, they have a message that they get that says you have received some point damage, and you've received a hit at this point on you, and the incoming vector is this, whatever. And then it's up to that object to decide how they want to react to it. And so the objects don't need to know about guns or anything. The guns don't need to know about the things they're shooting either. So it's another sort of decoupling thing.
Right.
So if you have a gun that uses a damage system, then you can shoot anything you want in the world by just making sure it handles those damage messages.
Right, that makes sense.
You can ignore those ones.
Very good.
That's something I've been meaning to track down. I think Lincoln's got some stuff in his machine that wasn't checked in, but it doesn't matter too much.
Okay.
In fact, I'll run through just one quick damage example. So,
Still compiling shaders. I'm not sure how that affects you.
that should be fine. Oh, okay, project, there we go. It's a slightly smaller window. Yeah, so we've got all our maps. Let's so we've got, say, like about 40 or 50 maps at the moment set up. So let's just jump into the first one. Just so we've actually got a little bit of context. What's that one? Oh yeah, it's fine. So if we play that, hopefully it should work fine. There we go. So this is not VR, this is just... Oh, of course you can't. It's so dark without the VR, isn't it? That's right. Okay, that's probably not a good example, but actually what I'll do, I'll go to my menu screen.
Okay.
Which is a... Yeah, this is okay. This is a good example, I think, of the damage system. So let's just fly over. Okay, so we have a... I'll just leave that there for now. We've got a player. Now, where is it? The main... I think the main player... No, sorry, that doesn't have shooting, so I'll come back. I forget which one. Okay, make that a bit bigger. Right, here's a blueprint, and this is... Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this is the blueprint that actually handles the player looking around and shooting. So this, I'm sorry, this is not going to be at all readable for anybody.
That's right. I've seen lots of guys streaming stuff about blueprints now, and it's never readable.
No, that's the other problem with visual scripting stuff. So basically, this red box here is a just an event. So it basically says this will fire every time. Well, it'll just fire every frame. This one, it's just the standard event. It's a tick event. That's right. And basically, so every frame I say, okay, calculate look at. So I'll see where the player is looking. I will... Oh yeah, sorry, this calculate look at, this finds the... basically casts a ray out into the scene and just returns the first thing that it hits.
Mm-hmm.
I basically break... So I get the thing that's been hit through here. And I'm only interested in the location of it, actually. And so... Yeah, so the flow is a tick occurs, it calculates, it looks for the first thing that it hit, and it draws a debug sphere. That's the little red sphere.
The little red sphere that we see when we're shooting zombies.
Yep. On there. And this is all just debug stuff. It's not going to be in the final game or anything. It's just so we can just see where we're aiming at the moment and shoot stuff. And so I've got another event here. It's input action fire, and so basically whenever anybody presses the fire button, and I think we've just got that set up at the moment to be either gamepad button or a mouse button or the space bar, it basically, again, it calculates, it shoots a ray out into the world, finds out what it's hitting, it does a little branch here. It says, did I hit something? So if I actually hit something, well, if I didn't hit anything, then it just stops execution. It doesn't come out there. If it did hit something, it calls apply point damage. And basically what I feed into apply point damage, I feed in the thing that I've hit, the other actor, so that might be a zombie or a rock or a barrel or whatever, and I fire in the direction that the hit came from, and just also some other hit info, so just like its position on that object that it got hit, and whatever other stuff like that.
And that stuff's sort of important for physics. So if you get hit in the shoulder, you want the thing to
Exactly. So
throw the shoulder back.
in fact, I can show you the zombie. So that's the player, and that will change quite a lot. In fact, the player won't be applying damage. The player will just be firing guns, and the guns will shoot stuff out to the scene, and it will be the.
So it's not people that kill people.
It's,
it's guns that kill people.
it's damage events that kill people.
Damage events. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it
I
might
went
be
political there.
It might be that the gun just does a raycast and actually damages the thing directly, or it might be that the gun actually spawns a bullet object, like if you've got a grenade launcher or something that moves slowly, or even a crossbow or something. It might be you actually spawn an arrow, and the arrow travels around, and when that hits something, the arrow is the thing that applies damage. But the zombies don't care. They don't care. All they need to know is they've been hit.
So we were all wrong. It's neither guns nor people that kill people. It's bullets.
Well,
bullets kill people.
Yes.
Action events.
So yeah, the zombies.
I've thrown you off now.
That's all right. I was already thrown off. Actually, this is quite good because I've never actually got a chance to run you through any of this stuff.
No, this is good for me.
It's I don't expect anybody to remember any of this stuff. It's just kind of to get a flavour of it, really. So yeah, if I go into the zombie, is it this guy? Yeah. Okay. So in the zombie, this is a zombie blueprint. This is everything that controls a zombie, but the main thing is there's an event handler here called event point damage, and this is a thing that gets called if a zombie experiences point damage, like from a bullet. You'd have another one for well, there's also like I said, there's point damage, there's sort of area radius damage, and also just general damage. And so if I wanted when we put explosions and grenades and stuff, and then I'll also have a radius damage handler that will handle a little bit differently. So the point damage, basically, the zombies are set up. They're a skeletal mesh, and they have physics and stuff, and they're generally running an animation and not using physics. They're just under animation control. So whenever they get a point damage at the moment, basically they say to all their body parts, you're under physics control now. And also, I'm going to add an impulse at a particular location. And an impulse is just like an instantaneous force of a certain magnitude. So, like for the bullet hit. So, you have a bullet coming in at a certain force, and say, right, I'm going to apply that at this location just after I've turned all your physics on. And I can't even remember how that works. What's the movement mode? I think he turns the character movement off, so it stops him being controlled by the animating. So it stops it animating.
This is for enabling the ragdoll stuff.
Yes, exactly. Sorry,
stop him moving under animation.
Yeah. So basically, turn the physics stuff on for all your body parts. Add a force to handle being blown back by the bullet. Turn off the animation movement. Turn on sort of collision detection.
Because we want him to bounce off the floor and slide down the side of the bridge and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. The collision. I turn off the collision on his capsule. So basically, all the characters have like a simplified capsule around them that's used for general movement and collision and stuff against the environment. And so when I go to ragdoll, I want to stop using that simplified one and actually go to using each individual body part, which is more expensive, but that's how you get them
Yeah.
sort of tumbling over the ground.
But you're not doing it all the time. That's the advantage of
Exactly.
the capsule, is you're doing a very simplified
Exactly,
thing most of the time. But
Yeah.
then when you really want to show the devastation of him being killed,
Yeah, he goes
can
into
actually-
jelly ragdoll mode.
yeah.
So there we go. I say, right, now turn on ragdoll on the skeletal mesh. So turn on collisions with the the mesh with the complicated collision information.
Mm-hmm.
Then just sit there for 5 seconds, do nothing, and when that 5 seconds has lapsed, go away, just die. So what that means is every time a zombie gets hit with a point damage thing, like from the player firing, he turns on ragdoll, waits for 5 seconds, and then deletes himself. So you shoot zombies, he goes, and then 5 seconds later it just disappears.
Excellent.
And obviously, that's not going to be the final thing for the game. Basically, the point damage stuff has information about how much damage or the types of damage. So basically, the different things in the game will have different, different weapons in the game have different, damage amounts.
Yep.
So some guns will be more powerful than others. And the zombies will have some kind of life value. So some zombies will take one shot to kill, or other zombies will take more, or headshots will count for more. All that kind of thing.
Yep.
And all that kind of thing can be handled in here, just by making great big sprawling blueprints. But you've got sort of as much area as you want, really. So.
So on a, I don't know, let's think of a specific game. So something like Skyrim, that blueprint would be one.
Well, it kind of depends. I mean,
or would you have a lot of blueprints?
I wouldn't want to get it too much more complicated than this, to be honest.
No.
I mean, it will get a bit more complicated, but what you can actually do is you can chop out sections and turn them into own little mini blueprints, and, functions actually. And in fact, it's exactly the same as in the programming language. You chop out little chunks of code that you're going to reuse and have a sort of a single thing that they do, and put them into their own blueprint. So ideally I wouldn't want it to get much more complex than this, so it gets too big and sprawling. That's
There would be though, right? Because there'll be characters that'll lose bits of shield and stuff like that.
yes, but they hopefully that can all be handled out, and they can have their own little functions to handle that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just going to turn off the cold. Somebody turn on the cold.
Yep.
So anyway, the point is, the point with the point damage is the zombie doesn't care where the point damage came from. It can come from a player bullet or an arrow, or there could be some sort of spear trap, in the environment that triggers. The zombie just doesn't care. It just knows that it's been hit by something sharp and pointy, and reacts accordingly. And that is very, very cool, because you've got other things in the game that you want to be able to shoot. So if you've got barrels you want to blow up and things you want to destroy, all you got to do is just make sure that those things have damage handlers.
Yeah.
So for example, I just did a there's
what are we looking
the
at?
zombie.
There's a zombie in a cage.
That's a zombie in a
its
capsule.
capsule.
That's
Yes,
its
yes.
capsule. Yeah. We're looking at the zombie as a whole, but the blueprint is sort of one part of him. So that's like his visual and collision setup, and this is his sort of logic that drives him. But what I wanted to go to, I'm just going to try not to shut down Unreal there.
Takes a while to start up, so.
Yeah, so we've got a whole heap of levels at the moment, and one of the things we want to do is just get regular builds going so people can play it without having Unreal and Editor installed. And of course, to do that, you need a front end with a menu and stuff. And we're sort of in VR, although not everyone's got a VR headset, so we support mouse look and stuff as well. Traditional menu. Yeah, we could do some sort of traditional menu and figure out how to how to do GUIs and
Yeah.
move stuff around and pick items and highlight stuff and make it all look snazzy. Or, which I think is a much better idea, is just handle it like everything else, every other interaction in the game, just by blowing stuff up.
Excellent. I love the idea.
And I think that's
And we're doing it in full 3D too, so we're eliminating parts of the 2D.
exactly
GUI.
yeah. So you don't. I think the less GUI in a game, the better generally.
Yeah.
If you can get away with it. So this level is just a little menu level that I just hacked up very, very, very quickly just to try it out. And so you can see our little red targeting thing. And I made up these. I made up a very, very simple blueprint. I'll show you in a second for these barrels. And basically, all they do is when you shoot them, they take you to a level. And I just rigged up a different level for each barrel here. And so I'll just shoot this one, doop, and then it is loading at the moment.
In this case, it's
I actually did have a loading screen. I had a little loading screen I put in. And
hello,
it's loading.
disable all screen messages to suppress.
Yeah, that was just debug
All right.
debug text. Oh, it's a bit slower on this machine.
I'm not surprised. We're broadcasting, and
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
and we've actually got. If you hide OBS, we've actually got.
And there we are in the.
Actually, can we do that? Can we hide OBS so I can actually see our stream?
Yeah, hang on. How do we do that? Oh, hello zombies. Have some damage.
Very good.
Have some damage. No, have some action events.
Oh,
Yeah, it's usually-
one thing I haven't fixed up yet is the when you start in mouse mode, it doesn't have a height. It's like when you're using the VR camera,
Mhm.
it sort of knows if you're it's sort of set up to be sitting or standing or whatever.
Yeah.
But not so for the mouse mode. You actually just
So we're
right down on the floor.
knee height, basically.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Knee height.
We're here.
Knee height to a zombie. Hey guys, right. So yeah, let's just quit out of that. So you want
Go across the, just
Oh.
hide OBS. Just
yeah.
drop it to minimise it.
There we go.
There we go. Yep. Very
Um,
good. Now we can see what's actually being transmitted.
Yeah. So, where are we? Nice.
I
There we
think
go.
you're back
Back
in
up
the
that
menu,
screen.
yeah.
There we go. So, for some reason, I think I put my level a long way away. It's a bit silly. So anyway, my barrels, my level picker barrels here. I have 2 of them, and basically I set it up so the barrel just has a variable in it called dest, and it's just the name of the level you want to go to. So that's just what's in that barrel, and the other barrel takes you to level 23. So yeah, so if we want to add extra levels, we just add extra barrels.
Okay. So what's the blueprint look like?
Yeah, the blueprint for it is hang on, let me think. Where I put it? Oh yeah, level picker. Yeah, that's the blueprint. In fact, that's more than we need. So there's your point damage event.
Which we've seen previously.
Yep. And basically, whenever point damage happens on the barrel, it prints out some debug text that says hello, obviously,
We just saw that before. I was
in pink. And then it just says open level. Which level? The one in my destination variable. And that's it. And that's the entire level switching mechanism. So
okay. That's very simple.
So yep, guns don't know about barrels, barrels don't know about guns, but you can still use interchange levels. So that's and that's basically the.
Can we have a look at the other level? Which level was it that you've got for your second
I
level?
forget actually. Let's try it. I think it was one of the moonlight ones. I should just start. Oof. Yeah, there we go. And
Alright.
on the floor again. Hey zombies. Yeah.
Keep lead and die.
Yeah. Very much so. Anyway,
Yeah, there's a torch in there.
yeah, so anyway, that's that whole idea of decoupling stuff like that is something I want to have throw out the game as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because I think it just makes everything so much easier to reason about. When things go wrong, you actually know where to look for them.
Yep.
And
you and I are going to have a discussion at some point just over how we actually design or how we actually code levels.
yeah,
So you very much want to keep it minimalist, so the level is created by the behaviours of the things in it,
yep.
and I like to be able to script a couple of things. So
Well, I mean, you're always going to need to be able to script up nasty little special case evil hacks. But I want to make sure all the nasty special case evil little hacks are nicely self-contained,
and localised,
reusable units that can be.
We have a question from Big Fuzzy Thing. Hello.
I can't see.
Do you
from here.
think UE4 is easier to use than Unity?
It's a tricky one actually. It's I mean, they're both really overwhelming when you first jump into them. I mean, just look at the screen here. It's there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different panes and lots of cryptic icons and lots of completely incomprehensible stuff. And Unity's the same. But I think if I was coming at it cold with both of them, I think I'd probably find Unreal a little bit easier to do a game with. But I would find Unity easier as a programming environment. Unity's much more open in terms of how you structure stuff. Like, it doesn't necessarily assume that you're going to make a game. It's just a scene with stuff in it, and the stuff can interact any way you want. Whereas Unreal is very much more opinionated. It sort of has the concept of players and actors and collisions and.
So you've got more of a structure around you from the start.
Yeah. And I suspect if you're trying to do something in Unreal that didn't fit that mold, you would be fighting against it really hard. And I think you'd find a lot of.
So what would you want to do? What could you do in Unreal that would fit the Unreal mold? Are you thinking of? Where would you choose Unity over? What kind of project would you choose Unity for over Unreal?
It kind of depends. Maybe, I mean.
We've done a few questions, mate.
We've done. It's a good question. I mean, we've done a few projects, a few non-games projects in Unity, and I think in a lot of those cases, Unity would have been the best choice anyway, just because it wasn't sort of a traditional game-like thing.
Yeah.
But that said, I mean, Unreal sort of will cover, and if you're doing some really sort of off-the-wall game, like a new genre that nobody's ever really done, or was something that was quite different, then
you'd
you're
be less
probably going to be
constrained
struggling in Unreal, I think.
Right.
You might be lucky, but Unreal is very much set up for the whole thing where you have one or more players and you've got other things in the scenes, and you've got scenes that can load in and it can handle streaming and all that kind of stuff. And also a lot of the networking stuff is kind of done for free. If you do things the Unreal way, the networking, if you're doing a multiplayer game, should just kind of magically work and work well.
Cool.
I'm not sure if Big Fuzzy Thing was here at the beginning of the stream, but we basically made this decision based on the accessibility of the stuff for artists. So for artists to actually come in and contribute to the level design in a richer way.
Yeah, and it's definitely, like I said, the whole decoupling thing is a lot. It feels better to me in Unreal. Like the decoupling's really encouraged, whereas in Unity you can write stuff in a decoupled way. You can make nice reusable components that are independent of other things. But it doesn't make you do that. And there's no real feedback to sort of say that's the right way to do it.
Right.
And so you get to the point in Unity, where you have projects that are just really nasty spaghetti dependencies of things. Sort of,
we've seen those.
Exactly. And I'm sure there are teams that use Unity sort of in sort of quite big teams. But I think to do that, you have to be really, really disciplined about how you use it and what your conventions are,
and thoroughly knowledgeable about the dangers of it.
Exactly. And Unreal you do too as well, but it's a bit more obvious which way to go. So it's already got a lot of good conventions in there. And also the community, I think, has sort of developed a lot of good conventions around just how you name stuff.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot, and how you structure your project and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
That makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I think Unreal makes sort of the collaboration side. If you're doing it on a big team, I think Unreal is probably going to be a lot easier.
Okay.
Cool.
I haven't seen Into Dreamland today. Have you seen Into Dreamland?
I have not seen Into Dreamland.
I haven't seen him for a couple of days. I think you might be missing.
MIA.
I can see April there. April's watching.
I need glasses, so I can't see them.
It's online friends on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But Into Dreamland usually pops up on the screen when Into Dreamland comes in, because he brings in his followers as well, which is great. Blow away a few zombies to...
It's very restful, actually, blowing away zombies.
It's good, isn't it?
Anticipated this quite... Oh, there we go, 5 seconds and they go away.
There's your 5 seconds
There's
of
your
fun
5
theory.
seconds. Not for zombies.
That's the red text I can keep seeing in VR. So it sits way above your eyes, and you try to look up at it, of course.
It might be
keeps
the
going.
red text. I've never been able to nail it down, because it's it doesn't appear
the
on the 2D
lighting
screen.
needs to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I suspect it might be. It might not be that message, but I suspect it's probably something to do with the lighting issue I was talking about. Just how it's
There come some more targets for you.
Yes. Yeah. So probably the next thing I need to really do is actually start. The next thing is getting the zombie behaviour stuff working a bit better, so they actually do some more interesting things.
So who should we get to change the physics constraints on those fellas?
I don't know. Probably Linda or Sergi.
Linda or Sergi? Okay.
Or Lincoln.
We should do that, because I'd like to see them actually fall more human-like.
Yeah.
In the way they go down, especially when you see them slide off the side of the bridge and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think the collision. I don't think they're being sort of thrown in quite the right way yet either.
They seem to be. If you have can you have a shot here? Just shoot one in the shoulder as he comes along.
I don't know. I was sort of trying to get. I was trying to get it so that they would kind of really twist around, but they don't really
not much,
do that.
But it does seem to actually react to it.
Yeah.
Like if you shoot him in the foot now, you'll watch him fold up.
It doesn't make sense that they fall forwards.
Yeah. Like if I shot one in the head, I kind of expect them to really go backwards.
Yeah.
Well, you need to have. He's got guys behind him, so that's hard for him to do. But
then he should just drop to his knees.
But they do go
hard from
backwards.
floor level.
See, that was a pretty good fly back.
That one did. Yeah.
Now, if you'd shot him in the foot, he just would have fallen forwards. He would have folded up.
But they all fall forwards.
No, they fall forwards when they've got the zombies packed behind them. That's because they don't really have much option.
Yeah,
Well,
that could be it.
But then they should crumple, shouldn't they? Crumple to the floor.
Yeah, I was just worried that the impulse might have been applied to the capsule that they sort of live in before they go to ragdoll.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm pretty sure it's working.
Yeah.
Okay, so
The other thing
without a zombie behind it.
Oh, okay.
They're all pecking.
That looked pretty. Yeah, that was pretty.
Kill.
Yeah, and then they'll kind of lie on you.
It's very addictive.
If there's, as they say in Penny Arcade, if there's one thing I can't abide, it's the undead.
Actually, that guy played James Bond. I forget what his name is. The guy in Penny. No, I'm thinking of something else, aren't I?
I don't think I saw that James Bond movie.
No, the guy that played Rocket Man. He was also in James Bond. He was James Bond exactly once, and I don't think anybody liked him. He was another George Lazenby, I think. Well, no, George Lazenby was a real arse apparently on the set.
Right.
But this guy, I just don't think he took off. So they got Pierce Brosnan after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But going back to the zombies, I think the next thing is to get some zombie behaviour going. Get them sort of looking around more, and it's actually the environment is going to be the important thing as well. There's sort of go away zombies.
Pile them up there.
It's really first thing is probably to get the player actually starting at a sensible height.
Yes, that too.
But with the zombie behaviour, I mean the zombies. I want the zombies to react to different kind of stimuli that's in the environment. So they will react to sounds.
Mm-hmm.
they react to life. So things that are alive are interesting to zombies, and also light. So they can't see in the dark, so the player can hide in shadows and things. And I think that particularly light and sound, that's actually separate to what you actually see in the game. It's like we can't magically, well, actually I don't know, maybe we can magically sense the light levels at any point in the scene, I'm not sure. But it might be the case that we need to go through and actually place little locator beacons around the levels saying, this area is light, and when you make a sound that, you might have a little locator beacon saying, there's a sound here. Actually, I think Unreal actually has a system for that already. But for the player, for things that are alive, for example, basically I want them to have a thing to, so the player has a sort of aliveness value, which would be higher than sort of a rat scurrying around or something like that. So if there's a rat and a player nearby, the zombie will go for the player. But that could be attenuated by distance, so if the rat's much closer than the player, he might think the rat's more interesting and say, ooh, we go after the rat.
I'm thinking there's probably a way to detect how much light is actually hitting a player.
Well, maybe. It's
Because
possible.
you need that sort of stuff for ambient occlusion calculations, don't you?
Yeah, but all that kind of stuff is generally done in the shaders. It's basically all on the graphics card side of things. It's like once it's generally all that stuff is a very write-only operation. You push your meshes and your lighting and textures out to the card and say render me the scene, and it's very hard to read anything back in. So if you want to do lighting calculations, you sort of have to have like a special sort of lighting probe in the scene, and actually have some code that actually runs to say, right, okay, calculate the light at this point, and actually you'll have to go out and do the calculation yourself rather than on the graphics card and the shader.
Okay.
So that's why I mean sort of you might need sort of logical mirroring of the lighting setup. But again, that's probably possibly something that we can just do automatically anyway, because most of our lighting is reasonably static.
Yeah.
And most of it is sort of point lights to sort of create the mood and stuff. And so we can actually just have a thing that just runs through the scene and looks for all the point lights and says, right, point light here, point light there, point light there, and we can have our own code that works out how light things are.
Okay.
And that'll work for the moving stuff as well.
So we're actually at the end of our stream. In fact, we've run a little bit over. Yeah, you've rattled on for an hour.
Wasn't so bad now, was it?
See, we get you here, and you can't shut you up. After all the nervousness at the beginning.
Wouldn't want to shut you up.
So,
Just to be
I'm
clear.
Brook, Margaret, and Ben from Stickmen Media and Desolate Spectre Studios. Today we've been talking with Ben about using Unreal on our After the Light project. We'll be back again on Monday at 1 p.m. New Zealand time. Ben's killing off the last few zombies. So yeah, join us then. And anything else?
That'd be it.
That's it.
That's all
Okay.
for him.
As soon as Ben finishes, I can reach the stop button. Okay.
Oh, hang on, let's escape, get out of zombie land.
Right.
Now you can fumble around for a while.
Yeah. Again. I think
It was
I
great
need
to
to.
do that
Off
live.
the right.
I am doing this. Right, if I pull up OBS, now I can go across to the right and actually stop recording.